Yuka, good to have you with us this evening. In its final week, the Biden administration has been announcing sweeping new rules to try and keep the US's dominance in the field of AI.
Well, Sharon, the Biden administration says that for AI technology to advance in a safer world, the US must maintain its lead in the industry. The new regulation caps the number of AI chips that can be exported outside of the US, with the exception of just 18 of its closest allies, including Britain, Canada, Germany, Japan, and Taiwan, while an existing ban on AI chip sales to China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea to prevent the technology from enhancing their military capabilities will be maintained. Now, there are provisions that make it possible for governments and companies to negotiate exceptions, but tech companies have protested the new rules as something that could hurt their business, but the White House defended its decision.
In the wrong hands, powerful AI systems have the potential to exacerbate significant national security risks, including by enabling the development of weapons of mass destruction, supporting powerful offensive cyber operations, and aiding human rights abuses such as mass surveillance.
China is bracing for a potential new trade war, Yuka, with the incoming Trump administration, as its economy appears to have turned more and more reliant on exports.
Well, last month, China's exports surged to nearly 11% from a year earlier, far above expectations. Imports in the same period grew just 1%. China's annual trade surplus with the rest of the world reached a record in 2024, rising to about 970 billion euros, according to the latest data released on Monday. The Chinese economy is more dependent on exports than it has been for the most of the past 2 decades, meaning it could be more vulnerable to new trade policies under the incoming Trump administration. Sharon.
Now, 2025 brought an end to an era of Russian gas for Europe after a transit deal with Ukraine expired. Last week, the American government imposed fresh sanctions targeting Russian oil.
They've been described as the toughest sanctions on Russian energy yet. The new measures are aimed at cracking down on the shadow fleet of Russian tankers skirting existing sanctions. Chinese and Indian refiners are now reportedly seeking alternative energy suppliers, and shipping data shows dozens of oil tankers have dropped anchor since Friday's announcement. Jenny Shin has the details.
It's another blow to Russia's energy sector. The US Treasury imposed wider sanctions on Russian oil on Friday, applying to giants Gazprom Neft and Neftegas, as well as 183 vessels, many of which are part of Russia's so-called shadow fleet used to evade existing sanctions.
These are the last days that Biden has before he hands over to President-elect Trump, and so his team is looking to take as many steps as they can to strengthen Ukraine's position and perhaps even to try and limit the scope for the Trump administration to roll back or to soften the US stance on Russia.
Experts estimate the sanctioned tankers moved 1.7 million barrels of oil per day in 2024, 25% of Russia's exports, often to China and India, 2 of the world's largest crude oil importers. The 2 countries are now expected to turn towards the Middle East, Africa, and the Americas for alternative supplies of crude, which could push up prices and freight costs. Indian refiners have already stopped dealing with US-sanctioned oil tankers and entities, though Russia could offer deeper discounts below the $60 price cap in a bid to keep its client. It marks a shift from Biden's cautious approach on Russian oil to not disrupt global markets. US officials justified the move by citing healthier global supplies and an easing of inflation in the US.
Oil prices today are significantly lower than they have been over an average in the past few years. So actually, we have just a fundamentally different price environment, and that is the reason for why now. Because President Biden was not going to impose sanctions on Russia's oil sector if it meant an undue burden on American working families.
The White House says the move is expected to cost Russia's economy billions of dollars a month.
So how is the global oil market reacting to this latest development?
Well, crude oil prices hit a 4-month high after the announcement and traded significantly higher throughout this Monday, though the rise slowed down in the past hour or so, with the US WTI up 2.8%. Brent crude has dipped below $81 per barrel now. Let's have a quick check on some of the day's stock market action. US stocks diverged on Wall Street, with the Dow Jones and the S&P finishing in positive territory, while the Nasdaq declined, weighed by tech shares like Nvidia, though the sell-off eased in the final hour of trading. And that's it for business.
Yuka, thanks so much for all of that.